It's
I
coming.
mean, something that would be good for Thanksgiving and the children's to know what Thanksgiving is all about, and not just Christmas toys
Excuse me.
and a good meal. What'd you have for dinner?
I
Go ahead, Matador. It's a
chicken
beautiful,
wrap.
beautiful
Chicken
story,
wrap.
I'm sure.
Now here we go, loop-de-loop, on Megaloranda. Now this story here also happened. It came true on a Thanksgiving evening. Now this was a group of people. They was called we'll call them the FROs, who lived far out in the country back in the earlier years. It was just a son and a daughter. And the son and the daughter was quite sincere with each other. They loved each other dearly as brothers and sisters. They would laugh and play and have fun with each other. And the sister was somewhat smarter, and she would read to her brother sometimes and teach him some things through the book until she finally learned him how to read a book a little bit. But anyway, the young man, he was 14, and his sister was going on 16. Yeah, they were now. And when they was younger, and around 10 or 11 years old, they went and wrote each other's name on the back of an old apple tree in the back of the house. They said one was Josephine and Melvin will always be together, and which was the sister and the brother, Josephine and Melvin. Now, so anyway, Melvin always had a tendency to go hunting in the evening. He would get that old his daddy's 20 gauge, which had been passed down through years. I think his daddy's daddy had that old 20 gauge, and it was a fast shooting 20 gauge. Of course, it was pretty heavy too. And this one particular day, old Melvin decided to go up on the ridge and get him bag a few squirrels for supper. And he did just that. And he took the old hound dog with him and went way up in the ridges. But in a bird's eye view, he could see the path and he could see their house from the top of the ridge where he was at. And as he was going up that ridge, he became quite tired. He sat down for a minute, and his dog come over and laid down beside of him too. It wasn't long, a sudden change came over the young man, and it seemed like he fell asleep, just laid back on that old stone he was on, and the old dog laid right there beside of him. For some strange reason or another, they woke up hours later, I guess you could say, and he woke up and he looked around. He could tell something was strange in the air. Something just wasn't right, but he was still kind of misled a little bit, kind of out of himself, so to speak. He said, well, I'm going to go on back home. Maybe I'll get me one or two on the way back home. He headed down that ridge side, and he came to the path and it was an open field that wasn't there before. And he could see this thing called a white fence that was right there in front of him that wasn't there. And he looked over and seen that his house wasn't there. And all at once he looked over at his dog, and his dog took off running down the field. And he was calling for him, but the dog kept on running. Curious as he was, he walked over to the fence, and he remembered this path because it was still somewhat there. He looked over where the house once was, and it was a frame there where a house had been. And for somehow he could sense that was the place where he had once lived, but something wasn't right. And it wasn't long. He went back to the old apple tree, and he seen the carving of his sister, and his name was still on that tree. Right then he knowed he was on the right trail. So he went down the country road a little while, and then moments later it turned into a graveled road, I guess you could say. Gravels were there. It was a road, it was bigger, and it looked to be a lot longer and wider. And then all at once, he's heard of automobiles before, or motor cars. He's heard of them, but they've seen one, but they never seen one like this one, which was an old, I guess you could say, a 56 Chevrolet that had lights on the top of it. I guess you would call it a police car. Yeah, police car. White it was. And this guy pulled up beside this young man, and he asked him. He said, "Son, are you lost?" And that young man replied, "Yes, I really am. I used to live in a house back up the road there a little bit, and it's not there anymore, and I'm kind of lost. Is this an automobile? I've heard of them, but my daddy talk about them." He said, "Yeah, son, come on, get on in here, and I'm going to see if we can find some of your folks here." He got in the car, he was all eyes, and he turned around and went back down the road. And he said, "Young man, now tell me what happened now." He said, "Well, I just went squirrel hunting, and when I came back down the ridge, everything had then been changed on me. My house wasn't there. I don't know which way to go. Maybe you can help me." He said, "What is your last name?" "My last name is Renfro." Renfro. Listen, I know it's a Renfro lived right down the street here. Her name was Sarah Renfro, I think it was the name. She's an older lady. I guess she's about 65 years old. And how old are you?" "Well, I'm going on 15. "Yeah, Lord, you look to be a little older than 15 years old. You a good sized boy. Now come on, we'll go down here and see this Miss Renfro lady and see if she can help you out a little bit." And it wasn't long. They went and knocked on the door, and she said, "Yeah, Miss Renfro, I have somebody here that wants to talk to you a minute." "Okay, now, who is this young man here?" "He's claimed he's a Renfro, and he lived up the road there for a while." She said, "Well, me and my parents and my brother lived up there, up on that road up there. We was on his house up there for years." She said, "Now what is your name, young man?" He said, "Well, my name is S. Renfro." "Does that stand for Sam?" "Yes." She said, "You know, I had a brother named Sam that he went hunting a long time ago and nobody never seen him." He said, "Ma'am, I went hunting and I came back and everything was gone. My family, the house, and everything was gone." She said, "Well, son, what was your mother's name and your father's name?" And he told the mother and the father's name. And she said, "Come here, I've got a picture that looks just like you. My brother looked just like you when he was your age, identical." And there it was. She went and showed him a picture, and the picture looked just like him and her when they were young. But here she was, damn near 65 years old now, and here he was with this 14-year-old look about him. And you know what? Right then and there, them two sat on the couch and they began to cry because they'd found each other. Yeah, they did. That was his sister. And for some strange reason or another, I guess you could say on that Thanksgiving Day, that was the best gift that they could ever get for Thanksgiving. They got each other. And then the old police officer, the sheriff, got up and left out of the house with a smile on his face. And Old Miss Renfro said, "You gonna come back out the wild for some pie and stuff, ain't you, Sheriff?" "Yeah, I'm gonna leave you two alone. It seemed like y'all hadn't seen each other in years." And they both laughed and looked at each other and said, "It has been years." I guess you could say that was a beautiful blessing that them two got. A beautiful blessing. After all those years, somehow, and that quantum leap, that quantum physics, that boy came back to meet his sister. And of course, his mother and his father done passed away. Ain't they sat there in multitude words? But anyway, that was one heck of a Thanksgiving present, wouldn't you say? The end. Yeah.
That was a wonderful story, Matador.
Yeah, what about that, bro? That girl was old as Methuselah when he came back home, but I wonder if she ever got a... But I know she had a young heart.
Just a beautiful story. It's as beautiful and haunting as Ned Beatty's acting in Deliverance.
Well, okay, Mr. Blue Velvet. Well, survival.